So you want to build muscle. Male or female, the reason a lot of people join the gym is to stimulate muscle growth and get a bit bigger. So today we're going to cover 5 important guidelines to increasing that muscle growth for beginners. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is training frequency. How frequently should you train each muscle group? Once a week will be enough to stimulate muscle growth. Twice a week, however, you're going to have twice as much growth hormone, testosterone, and protein synthesis going on, so it's going to be easier for intermediate level weight trainers to gain weight that way or to accelerate your results in the first place. The important thing to note here is you need 48 to 72 hours of recovery before training that muscle group again. So you have to be careful when planning your split to make sure that you're not going to be cutting into the previous session you did and cutting that recovery short by training the muscle group too early. So this brings me on to repetitions. How many repetitions should you do? Well, science shows that you need to do between 6 and 12 repetitions for it to be an anabolic training. Anabolic again means growth. So if you want to get bigger, that's where your failure needs to fall in between. Both ends of that range have their merits, however. But my suggestion to you would be, if you were training all your muscle groups once a week, would be to do lower, would be to sit around about 8 repetitions and to lift heavier. You want to overload the muscle more so it takes longer to recover. If you're going to train each muscle group twice a week, I recommend you sit closer to 12. You're going to need less recovery time and less overload and damage in the first place so you can recover quicker and fit all those sessions in the first place. Both will give you gains, both are anabolic. That is just my guideline for when you're starting out. However, I strongly recommend changing up your rep ranges every few weeks anyway and experimenting with what works best for you. Everybody's different. We have a different split and a different genetic makeup when it comes to our muscle fiber in the first place. Some people respond far better to strength training or lower reps than they do to higher end endurance training. So the 6 might make someone grow really quickly and it might have little effect on the next guy. So remember, do both. And if you haven't seen my progression video, I'd recommend checking it out up here because it goes into that in much more depth. That brings us on to number 3, which is do compound exercises. Compound exercises are much larger movements, which means much more muscle fiber is activated. The more muscle fiber is damaged and the more growth hormone and testosterone put into the system as a result means that your gains improve and they happen much quicker. In my opinion, the benefits of compound exercises far outweigh those of isolation exercises. Compound exercises being chin-ups as opposed to a bicep curl, or bench press as opposed to a pec fly. It's how many joints are moving. The more joints are moving, the more muscle fiber is activated. The more muscle fiber, the quicker you're going to get results, and the better overall effect your training is going to have for your body. This brings me on to number 4, which is rest periods. How long should your rest period be? Well, when doing anabolic training, it should be about 1.5 minutes to 2.5 minutes. That doesn't mean use a stopwatch, but it also doesn't mean go have a chat for 5 minutes and come back and do your set, and there's a very good reason for that. Muscles react to intensity. If you give them too much of a rest, they're not going to get overloaded, they're going to be able to cope with the stress, and it's not going to stimulate growth. So make sure you don't wait too long before doing a second set, or a third set, or a fourth set. This brings me on to number 5, which is our final guideline for today, which is cardio. How should you use your cardio? You need to keep your cardio up all the time. The heart and lungs are so important to the body's health, so I don't recommend cutting cardio entirely the way some weight trainers do when trying to make gains. Instead, separate your cardio. Don't do your cardio before or around the time you do your weight training. You need to put all that energy into your weight training session to really push the body to stimulate that growth. Instead, do it on separate days or at least split it into morning and night. That is cardio in the morning or in the night, weights in the morning or in the night, but never together. A final note on cardio is the more cardio you do, the more you're going to need to eat. Cardio burns off a lot of calories and that can be catabolic. In other words, it shrinks the muscle. So make sure that if you are doing quite a bit of cardio, you're doing extra weight training and eating extra to compensate. 1 to 2 times a week is fine when you're trying to really bulk up quickly, but if you're doing 3+, you need to take that into consideration. Thank you for watching my 5 guidelines for beginners weight training for weight gain. Next week, I'm going to go into the nutritional side of things, as well as other factors like sleep and hydration that are also crucial to building muscle. So keep an eye on this channel for that video. I'll also be doing some intermediate and more advanced tips for building muscle at some time in the future. So keep an eye out for that as well. And again, if you like training, if you like weight training, leave a like, and thank you for watching. I look forward to hearing some of your tips and guidelines in the comments section about what's worked for you. And I'll see you next time.